Hey, Peter.
Hey.
Hey, you sound great.
Thanks, man. How do I sound?
I'm Adam Maness.
And I'm Peter Martin.
You're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily jazz advice coming at you.
Today's episode of the You'll Hear It podcast is brought to you by Open Studio. Clapping again.
I love it when you
for
clap,
our sponsorship.
man.
Go to openstudio.network.com to check out all of our course offerings. Courses by Mr. Peter Martin over here. Courses
And
by
Mr. Adam Maness.
That's right. Courses by Jeffrey Keyser, Christian McBride, Diane Reeves, Steve Wilson, Sean Jones, Warren Wolf, Gregory Hutchinson, Reuben Rogers, Ulysses Owens Jr., Peter Sprague, Romero Lobambo. I'm going through the whole list here.
Stevie Wonder, Ludwig van Beethoven.
Okay, stop.
Okay, sorry.
It's a little much. But no, seriously, we got a lot of great stuff. Go to openstudionetwork.com to check it out. Check out our All Access Pass. You get all of it.
Get it all,
Yeah,
including the new jazz glossary, which is your baby.
Oh yeah, it's been popping off a little bit.
Course. Yeah, check out the jazz glossary.
It's just a nice little simple jazz reference.
That's right.
Yeah,
a little Wikipedia for your jazz day.
Okay.
Big shout out to Wikipedia. Keep documenting and defining.
And Disney.
Yeah.
All right, we got a speak pipe.
All right.
From Terry. Here we go.
Hey Adam, Pete, how you doing? This is Terry. I've done this before, and you were kind enough to answer my question. Had a thought. A couple weeks ago, I heard Adam call you, Peter, a great pianist, and I was curious from both of your perspectives, when you see or listen to a jazz pianist, what distinguishes what you're hearing as someone who is very good, great, a master, a prodigy? What is it? Obviously, there's a lot of technical skill involved, but to get to the point of where a professional looks at another professional and is able to classify them in a certain category. I mean, you got your Chick Coreas, your Herbie Hancocks, who are the Grandmasters of all time, but those that aren't at that level are considered, good, great as well. Anyway, be curious to see what your thoughts were. Appreciate it. Love your show. The podcast is one of the best. Thanks.
This is easy to answer. Okay. Anybody who's worse than you is a total hack, and anybody who's better than you is an all-time great.
That's right. It's very binary.
No, this is subjective, obviously.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say thanks. I didn't. That slipped by me when you called me a great pianist the other day. That
slipped by me too. I didn't knowingly do that.
Well, it is part of your contract here, so I appreciate that you're following through. But
no, I don't know what the context was.
Yeah.
And so there are some distinctions. Like I think there are some piano players who are great musicians who I wouldn't consider like great pianists.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
there's not like you are a great pianist. You have so much of the instrument seems so natural to you that I do consider you to be a great pianist as well as a great musician. But that is probably what I was talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's a good distinction. We talk about, in jazz, a great pianist, a great musician, a great jazz musician.
Totally.
And then we could talk about a great person, a great
a
chef. There's all different things.
Few and far between as we talk about great pianists.
But I do think that when we talk about, and I love Terry, thanks for the question,
That's a good question.
and for calling in, you mentioned very good, great, a master, a prodigy. This is really granular, and I like that. Probably when we talk about a master, and then I love that you were like Chick Corea and Herbie, like that's Grandmaster.
Grandmaster.
That's
totally.
Grandmaster.
Absolutely.
And that's a cool thing to think about, because chess is very easy. Like, if you beat somebody, you're better than them. And I guess if you do it consistently. In music and the arts and stuff, it's really not about like, it's not about beating somebody. It's not somebody's better. Now, look, it's obvious for us that we can say Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock are better, like in terms of ranking. That's if you have to do that. It's not to say that we're all great. No, there's different levels. But I think the important thing is like who can tell their story.
Right.
You know what I mean? To me, that makes a great musician.
Totally.
And if you layer in being great on your instrument, technically, and being able to tell your story even more. I mean, you have to have a certain level of skill on your instrument to translate, just like with the language. Like I could tell you a great story in English, but if I try to tell it to you in French, it's not going to quite have the same meaning because I'm not going to know the words to say.
But art is subjective.
Yes.
Right. So I mean, Liberace was a great pianist.
He was an amazing pianist.
There's no doubt about it.
And he was actually a great musician.
Yes, but it's not.
That's the pull-out quote for this episode. Liberace was a great musician.
That's what Peter Martin just said. But it's not music that I'm going to listen to.
Right. It's not your cup of tea.
It's not what I like. We had our speak pipe the other day about Oscar Peterson, how the guy's teacher didn't like the music of Oscar Peterson. There's no doubt that anybody can see or hear that Oscar Peterson is a great pianist. There's no questioning that at all.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, so somebody who loves his music, it's kind of like, it's surprising that their artistry as a jazz musician isn't considered great to everybody too, but I guess it's not. But although that gets into another thing of just pianists being jealous. Like I've never heard non-pianists being like, "Oh, Oscar Peterson, that's all technique." Yeah. That's usually jealous pianists.
It's usually jealous pianists.
I mean, there's
who tried to do it.
I don't think like Ella Fitzgerald's like, "Ooh, I hate playing with that guy. What a horrible trio he leads up." You know,
totally.
But I do think that when we get into very good, great, I just think sometimes it becomes sort of a numbers game in terms of like how many people can you impact with your art, and that's one part of being great, I think. And it's kind of overlooked because it kind of goes against this idea of like the solo, artists toiling away in their cabin, that their writings or their music and it never gets out into the world. Maybe they are still great. Yeah, maybe so. But I think there has to be this connection with the audience. And I think that, somebody, when we talk about pianists, let's think about Grandmasters now. This is easy.
Sure, yeah.
Herbie Hancock. Let's just talk about ones that are living now.
Now, are we talking about artists or pianists?
If we're saying Grandmaster, we're saying everything.
Everything.
Great great at a very high musical skill, artistry, telling their story, and great pianist as well.
Okay.
So, well, Terry already named it. Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea. Those are obvious ones.
Yeah, I put Keith Jarrett. In there, yeah.
You'll hear it.
I know. Some other folks that I would consider and these are common for us. Wynton Kelly.
Yeah,
would probably go in there for me.
I believe he's not alive, but
no.
We're going the Pantheon here.
We're
going.
Obviously, Art Tatum. I would put Oscar Peterson in there.
Earl Hines. I know I'm going a little bit
I would
far
put
back
Earl Hines
there.
in there as well for sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw you a little curveball on this, on the piano, on the keyboard. Stevie Wonder.
I agree with that.
I would put him as
Grandmaster for sure.
Yeah. That might be a little controversial, but I've heard him do things like when you talk about his recordings, it's the composition, the band. Like he can do so many different things. I mean, some of his best records he played every instrument on, so it's easy to overlook. But I've heard him play some things live that just wowed me in a way that is very similar to hearing Keith Jarrett live.
My controversial one, Thelonious Monk. I'm going to put him up there.
No controversy here, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think some people think he's not a great pianist, but he is a great pianist.
I absolutely think so. Yeah. He's not. It's his technique is not as easy to, kind of label as masterful as an Oscar Peterson,
right?
Or as a Keith Jarrett.
This is not flash.
Yeah, it's not flash, and it's not a typical classical kind of technique at all.
But it's technically difficult.
It's technically very difficult
to do. To get that sound is hard,
and it's very original. And I think that Thelonious Monk, and this is the great thing, and the subjectivity that comes into it, and the variety that I love, is that not everybody is an Art Tatum, and that's great. Even Oscar Peterson, when people are like, "Oh, well, he's just coming out of the Art Tatum." No, not really. I mean, he was a big influence, but Oscar Peterson did his own thing. Stylistically, he's coming out of that, and you can hear the influence. But Thelonious Monk is an original. It is hard to be an original, and I actually think that there's some overlooked things, and I know in reading that great biography of Thelonious Monk, it started to kind of crystallize for me in that his technique, like, because he was classically trained also. He went to Juilliard when he was like a teenager, like in high school or something. But you don't hear that technique as much. But when you really think about the originality and the way that he's able to produce specific sounds, that actually makes sense in terms of that he had a refined piano technique. He rejected and not even rejected, but changed some of that specific to work for how he was hearing the instrument. Yeah. So like I always get the feeling when he's improvising that like it's probably the closest I've heard any pianist to what I imagine is the sound of the voice of how they want it to sound at that time.
Yeah.
Like he's that specific to what he's hearing and able to translate that through the piano. And the piano's not naturally a very lyrical instrument.
Yeah.
Yet he makes it into like his voice,
Yeah. It's interesting, man. So now it gets really tricky. Like it gets hairy if we're talking about Grandmasters. I mean, do you put Bill Evans in there for getting his own sound?
I think you put Bill Evans.
You might have to.
I think you put Bill Evans in there. I don't think that's controversial at all.
I don't know. There's so many great pianists.
I mean, I think Brad Mehldau.
Yeah.
You put. I mean, I know that like we're not supposed to be like, oh, well, he's not. I mean, at the level, but I mean, I don't know,
dude. I heard him a couple weeks ago at Jazz St. Louis here, which is a piano I play on quite often. and it didn't sound like the same piano.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Oh, he played on the Yamaha there?
Yeah, he played on the
Wow.
Yamaha there, and it sounded unbelievable.
Dang, I hate that. I could have blamed it. I could have been like,
I know. I always blame the Yamaha. Not the case. Turns out you just have to have good touch.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now how we... The Prodigy is a whole other, that's a loaded word, I feel like. And things like good pianists.
Yeah. Well, Prodigy to me is like easier to, I mean, they're just young. They're really good and they're young. And like whether or not they're going to become sort of a master. I mean, look, we're defining this way more than I actually wanted to.
I know, me too, man.
We're like, you can't classify art. No, let's classify it.
It's really, it's impossible.
No, but I'm spacing on his name now.
Joey Alexander?
Joey Alexander.
Yeah.
To me, he's obviously a prodigy.
Classic Prodigy.
A classic prodigy.
Yeah, sure.
Although, you know, he's getting older now and his playing is actually so mature, it's a little bit, I mean, look, whether or not he's going to become a master the way that we look at Bill Evans or Chick Corea or whatever, Herbie Hancock, is yet to be told. But, I mean, he's a very mature player. He's not just a prodigy already. He's already moving well into... being a solid, not just a solid player, really, I mean, he's already a solid player and he's a prodigy and is an amazing pianist, but very mature for his age. So like he's going to be able to kind of just move along and then make his decisions because he's got so much already under his belt. But no doubt he's a prodigy. I mean, he's doing all that. I mean, I heard him when he was like 10 or 11 and he was like killing it already. I mean, that's classic prodigy, right?
Totally.
Or as the Germans would say, Wunderkind.
Wunderkind.
Yeah.
I just don't like doing this. I just don't like.
You look physically like you have a rash on the side of your face.
I don't know. I understand Terry's question, and I don't really think about why I called you a great pianist.
Yeah.
Even though it's obvious you're a very, very talented pianist. But
well, I do think that there's something to like. Let's because he really was talking about pianists, and we got more into the jazz, and that's great. Like and musician and creativity.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Then.
But I mean, there is something without even having to rate specific people. There's something about a pianist that could be playing anything that when they sit down at the instrument, they have a command of the thing. And like I always thought about, it's funny, I've been playing it so long. To me, it's like such a simple instrument on a very basic level because it's one of the easiest instruments to play one note.
Yeah.
Like you pressing a
Any
button.
child can sit down.
A cat
and get
can do
sound.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Go on YouTube. You can see a lot of cats making it play.
Yeah, more so than a trumpet. You know, or a violin,
or an oboe,
anything,
a
really.
bassoon.
Anything else is besides maybe a guitar,
right?
Where you could pluck a string and make a sound.
Yeah,
you can. It's true, but therein lies the challenge.
Yeah,
and I think this is where you're heading, and this is where I think about great pianists are people who have their own sound on the instrument. Stronger the sound, the personal sound, I think the better the pianist. This is why I think, you know, someone like Brad Mehldau, definitely someone like Chick and Herbie have that strong personal sound.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Kenny Barron.
Kenny Barron.
Yeah. Now, there's a master for sure.
For sure, yeah.
So, yeah. And I think, too, that...
Those people, you hear a couple bars and you're like, that's that pianist, no matter what the piano they're playing.
Yeah. And just that command. Robert Glasper. Yeah. Like, when, you know, like, whenever I see him and we're around a piano, I mean, he's such a funny guy, too. We're joking around. But he's got that thing where he just sits at the piano and just, like, plays something. It just has a command of the instrument. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, we all have different ideas and we can go different directions or whatever, but there's something about just being able to control the instrument, to be able to make something out of this machine and all these buttons and strings and hammers and stuff. And to me, that's kind of where the masterful thing comes. And what's fun about it is it really is, it's so simple on one level. It's fun when somebody can get to the level where they can do it in a way that's so much better. I mean, it's like, you know, basketball, it's like, it's so simple. You just put the ball into the net.
Yeah.
You know, so in a way, I mean, like my mom could go out and like bounce a ball and throw it up and it might go in.
Sure.
You know, and just like a professional, it might go in or might
but
not.
You're a stuffer.
But I mean, there's just like, it's just so you're taking something simple. It's not like, you know, a computer programmer, like no one's going to come up and just put the right things in a language and JavaScript is going to kind of come out.
Right.
But the piano, so it makes it even more impressive when somebody kind of just makes it their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Mary
must
Lou
be
Williams.
So who?
Mary Lou Williams.
Mary Lou Williams.
So that was, you know, now you're talking about I mean, even beyond just the jazz and the improv, of course, but like her mastery of the instrument. Nina Simone. I know it sounds like I'm just throwing in females at the end, but it's just kind of, I'm thinking of this. Nina Simone, I would say actually from all the pianists that we talked about, and that documentary is still so impactful on me, but I always loved her piano playing. Shirley Horn. Like, you know, we're talking about great singers, but to me, these are masterful pianists first and foremost, you know. And definitely Nina Simone. That's always what she wanted to do. She was kind of doing the vocal thing on the side. But she had the thing of where it's just like she could just take the piano and sculpt it and have her own sound with it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Terry, for the question.
Yep.
We answered it in a roundabout kind of way. Yeah. Remember that today's episode is brought to you.
It's bought. It was bought. Bought and paid.
By Open Studio. Go to openstudionetwork.com to check out all of our courses, including the All Access Pass, which is, of course, everything.
Yeah, and I just want to say that the All Access Pass is great. If you're not sure that you're ready for that, can I throw an audible little? We're gonna get back to our offers. How about that? Okay, the Jazz Glossary.
Jazz Glossary.
Jazz Glossary that was created and produced and disseminated by yours truly.
Disseminated?
I don't know what that means. Adam Maness. But no, this is a great thing. We've been getting a lot of love for the Jazz Glossary lately, and so we have a very special offer. Did you know this?
I didn't
very
know
special
this.
offer on the Jazz Glossary. If you put promo code, you'll hear it, one word, you will get a 30% discount on the Jazz Glossary.
That's incredible because it is actually priced at a pretty reasonable.
Oh, it is? Is it?
Yeah,
Was that too big of a discount?
Maybe 15%.
No, we're doing 30. We love our listeners, but you can check that out. Go to openstudionetwork.com and check out the Jazz Glossary. Promo code, you'll hear it for 30% off that.
Love it.
Limited time only, though.
Limited time only. This week only.
This week only.
All right.
Very good.
Till next time.
You'll hear it.